I am considering changing the name of our podcast though.
Yeah, same here.
Honestly,
Uh,
because I'm like, we need something. I
yeah,
don't, yeah, because real talk is just so outplayed at this point.
yeah, I agree.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk with ZTS, where we, as brothers, search for ways to share our voices while having a good time just talking, having those real talk conversations, our shared experiences, and reacting to random topics and articles. As we always say, we all have something to share, and we look forward to sharing and building that community of stories that we can all relate to. Now, enjoy the episode.
Oh, what's going on?
Oh, man.
Pretty, pretty busy day. Eventful, but busy.
Yeah.
Just like go, go, go.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, it's productive, but it just feels like
It's
it's one
just
of those days where it's just like go, 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 one
never
after
ending,
another.
man. It's just never
Yeah,
ending.
I know. When can we just kick back and just sip on hot cocoa by the fire?
I know, right? Seriously.
I'm ready. I'm ready for the fall season. Yeah. But yeah, I mean things getting easier for you. You feel like?
Uh, yes and no.
Yeah.
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 It's like we have like
Well,
a somewhat of a lull, but it's not really a lull.
yeah.
Just because we're down people at work at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and timing wise, it's unfortunate, but there's never really a good time to go down staff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
between like
Yeah, I
sickness,
forgot about that.
injuries, people leaving, that kind of stuff. So it's like oof.
Yeah.
So it's good times, good times. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully things shape up just, just better and brighter days, right?
oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And not to mention it's a heat wave going on right now, so that's good.
Where you're at?
So cool. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. It's like,
I
I think tomorrow's supposed to be 101. So,
ooh. I mean, it's cloudy today. I mean, we're looking at high 70s today, but it doesn't feel like it.
mm,
You know how the weather is like in Washington. So it's not like a heat wave, but
yeah.
it's like cloudy, but high 70s right now. I mean, we're looking at my thing is saying like 80, but it
Mm,
doesn't feel like 80. You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
you know how here it is in Washington, like there's no AC in a majority of homes here. And so when you're getting close to 80 degrees, it's toasty.
Oh, yeah.
But no, it doesn't feel like that today. So it's kind of weird. It's like high, but this weekend, I think we're gonna get hit with that heat wave too. I think it's gonna be like in the at least the low 90s. Best case scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that's going to
I
be
totally forgot about
something.
that.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
know. It's like summer
I
goes
mean,
until like October down here. So that's
yeah.
like,
I mean, with just how busy things been, I mean, I'm sure people are feeling the same way. It's just something in the air, something in the universe, but it's like it's not bad, but it's just like it's one of those things where like there's like nonstop something going on, good or bad. And but
yeah.
it's just like we can't think about the future right now because like there's always something in front of us that's like needing our attention.
Hmm.
However you interpret that. Um Yeah, but I'm staying hopeful. Things will get better. The fall season will hopefully slow things down. So we'll see how it goes.
That's the hope, right?
Yeah, that is. Um, anyways, speaking about hot weather, actually, this is a perfect segue to our to reaction to our reaction segment, where we bring to you some hot news, pun intended. From like articles, best articles of the week that we like to share. Speaking of hot weather, this is kind of a nerdy topic. This isn't like, I still think it's interesting. Not a lot of people enjoy science, even though, it makes the world go round, literally. Um, but so so speaking of the heat wave, I was just reading this article. Um, right now in the Midwest, the heat wave feels even hotter because of a plant phenomenon called I might be butchering this, but it's called evapotranspiration, or AKA the slang term is corn sweat. Basically, what it is like, in the Midwest, you have a lot of cornfields. So, so for example, corn or other crops, essentially when it's so hot, like hot heat wave, they're pulling so much moisture out of the ground to survive pretty much.
Yeah.
But they only take so much. And then whatever they evaporated that they don't use, it goes in the air. Pretty
Mhm.
much, pretty much not only, I don't know the science of everything. So, go ahead and feel free to butcher me and teach me a lesson in the comments. But whatever the sun does in terms of creating the heat wave for people right in the Midwest, now they're getting hit from the bottom up from the plants by them releasing what is basically the crop sweating, so it feels even hotter, even more humidity. I don't know, man. That was mind blowing to me because I was like, damn, that's dope. I learned something new because when you think of plants, right? I feel like I wasn't really such a big science kid
Yeah.
when I was in high school or in school. But one thing that always kind of stuck with you was photosynthesis, right? Photosynthesis, plants photosynthesize, and that's like the limits of my plant biology, right? Or my understanding of plant biology. And then I thought this was so cool, because that like really impacts us. And um, whatever, like we don't talk politics here, but whatever your theory is or whatever, it doesn't matter. But when it comes to climate change and things getting hotter or temperatures getting hotter in like places that typically aren't hotter before, Midwest is already a pretty hot place. With the climate getting hotter, like you're gonna expect more of this corn sweat, crop sweat, right? And so, it's a crazy concept to think of because it's like, I don't know, man. I'm thinking of like sci-fi movies at this point where it's like, is this where like the world ends? Where like, how like in those sci-fi um doomsday type movies, right? They're like, oh, we can't grow plants anymore and veggies anymore. We could barely grow potatoes. And I'm always wondering like what does that, right? Like, yeah, we might have a crazy dust storm that just kind of blankets everything, or a volcano eruption that blocks out the sun, sure. But when I read about this corn sweat thing, that might be a whole new you know for those who are like me, who are like interested in like these sci-fi themes. Corn sweat, man, that might be the end of the world. The hotter it gets, it just sucks the evaporate the moisture from the soil to the point where maybe plants can't even sustain themselves anymore. Who knows?
Yeah,
Um,
I think it is interesting because
yeah,
obviously this it's not really a phenomenon. It's just a process. That's the word I
it
was
is
looking
a
for.
process.
It's a
It's a
process. It's
process
just
that's not new, by the way. It's new
no,
to
no, it's
me,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not new.
For those
Yeah,
listeners, it's not new
yeah,
by any means.
yeah,
Take it from the environmental
yeah,
major guy here. But no, no, no. Yeah, it's just one of those things. I think it was, they typically talked about it um off of like obviously certain parts of the land and all of that stuff, but also just like open water sources or even glaciers. But I think obviously now we're seeing a little bit more of the evaporation and transpiration because I said the two processes separate, by the way,
yeah,
if
yeah.
anyone's following.
Evaporation, transportation. Yeah,
Yeah, transpiration. But
yeah,
yeah, so obviously those are two cycles, but then when you add them together, it becomes obviously evapotranspiration.
hmm,
Um, but obviously I think we see it now more than ever because of climate change, um, global ice caps melting and all that stuff. So,
yeah,
we're going to see more of that. And then it is interesting because obviously it depends on where it's happening. And I don't know if we're seeing it more in the Midwest now, one, because of the heat, but two, because of the factors of the area, right? The
hmm,
um I guess the more cities that are being built, more houses that are being built, all of that. Um, there's more of a focus on the areas, the rural areas where there's trees and grasslands and crops
Yeah.
and all of that, because um, there's more to pull from that area. Whereas like
Hmm.
if you're in a city or a town or something like that, buildings are going to limit the amount of evaporation that comes up, or evapotranspiration. I'm not going to say all these words,
Yeah. No.
but I will say there is obviously more runoff in cities, which because of water and all of that stuff from buildings, and that's why
Oh
you
yeah.
see things like green gardens and all of that.
Green roofs, all that. Yeah.
Impervious pavements or coverings of the ground, just so we can make all that
Yeah. And
pollution no
Chicago is just Chicago itself is just, a concrete
concrete
jungle,
jungle, literally.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so you obviously see that in more factors. And I think obviously with this goes into a whole different conversation as well, just like climate change in the environment and everything like that, because obviously that if you've been learning or anything in school, or well, I don't even know if they talk about this stuff in school, honestly, but
Yeah.
um but the need, supply and demand, essentially. Obviously we talk about supply and demand in business and all that, but like looking at the supply and demand of the beef industry, right? And I don't know how many documentaries people watch out there. I don't know if you're Netflix bingers, Disney Plus, whatever it might be. But we are in a crisis in terms of like we're running out of beef,
Hmm.
because we're just not able to naturally grow, raise
Yeah.
cows in a
Yeah.
way that is sustainable anymore, just because of how much meat the human species
Yeah.
eats at this point. So that's where you see obviously things of they're tearing down rainforests, and it's not because of like commercial building; it's because they need to grow grasslands, um,
Yeah.
to sustainably, in quotation marks, for those listening, raise cows or raise
Hmm.
cattle to
Yeah.
basically supply
Mm.
the meat demands of the world.
Yeah.
So we're losing a lot of vegetation and greenery and forests and all that stuff to make way for all of these feed factories, essentially. But they're not factories, they're grasslands,
Yeah.
or some feed factories, or whatever it is. Obviously they're trying to get rid of a lot more of those because it's not, I don't know, obviously, if you this is a rabbit hole of the conversation, by the way,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
those listening. but
You can go deeper
but it is
into.
interesting when you really dive deep into it, and it's kind of funny because like it's not like I dive deep into this conversation all the time. It's just that because it's brought up, it's like, oh yeah, consider the other factors, the influencing factors in this process of like water being pulled through
Hmm.
transevaporate or whatever. I've been saying the word too much. Evapotranspiration.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good lord. But yeah, evaporation and transpiration. But yeah, anyways, all that to say is like, yeah, when you start talking about it, you're like, oh, let's look at the other contributing factors here, like
Hmm.
how much of the land is covered in trees, how much of it's
Yeah.
covered in crops, how much is it just bare naked land, how much of
Yep.
it is buildings and houses. So um and the polar ice caps and the rising of the water and
Yeah.
all of the things. Because then you have to think, where does the water come from once it evaporates?
Yep.
Then it comes down and comes by via rain.
Yeah.
Interesting. No, it is an interesting thing. If you really dig into it a little bit,
Right.
you're just like, oh shit, oh
Yeah.
shit.
It's pretty intense. I mean, go everyone go read about it for you kids. Hey, this is a new problem to solve,
Yeah, and I think it is
Yeah.
hitting obviously the United States a little bit harder recently because of
Yeah.
everything that's happening. I think one with global warming and climate change, and all of that. But I mean, I was going to say the obviously the closer you get to the equator, the more more so and heavier it happens. So like
Yeah.
Africa is affected way more than the United States is in
Oh yeah.
this sense.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot more rainforest there. So
Yeah.
I digress. Anyways,
Yeah. All right.
interesting for sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
Midwest.
Definitely a cool topic. So, well,
Yeah.
we'll see what the follow up is, and if I find some news article that some other places are getting hit worse with similar evapo transpiration. There's a new word of the day.
Yeah. For
Uh,
those that didn't know the word. Now you know the word.
Now you know. Go do something
And the
about it, kids.
Midwest. Yeah. You're
Stay in
learning
school.
learning something new, not with the help of AI.
Yeah. I mean, I've been sometimes when I ask questions, I do ask AI to like define things for me, and
This
it's
is
been
true.
helpful. Yeah.
Bro,
So
I'm just
I've been using AI a lot more.
AI is crazy. I don't know if you've seen some of these reels off topic, obviously, but there's some of these reels going around. It's like oh god, answer AI. You see that?
Uh-huh. No.
It's like an app. It's basically like the snipping tool, right? If you have a computer and you have the
Okay.
snipping tool,
Yep. Yep.
that's essentially how it is. And
What is it snipping?
say for multiple choice questions on a quiz, you can literally just snip the question
Yeah, yeah.
like in just a
Oh,
cropped
I see, I
image,
see.
and
I see
it
what you're saying.
instantly reads it, and it's like the correct answer is D. And I'm like, oh my god.
That's pretty crazy.
I'm like, I
Uh
hope none of the students in college using this are doctors, because that
yeah.
would be not great. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're like an eco or a psychology major, by all means, go for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just get through the class, do what you need to do, get on
Yeah.
with your life. But if you're a doctor or practicing medicine or doing anything that's potentially going to save our lives, please
Yeah.
don't do
Please,
that.
please, please.
For the love of God, don't do it.
Yeah. Moving on. Kind of our last article tonight. Keep this episode short and sweet, but I think this is a good way to end because we love to talk about our favorite subject, sports. Specifically football, American football for our international fans. Um, Gridiron, right? Uh, with football season back, fantasy first real regular season opener this week for NFL. All exciting things, man. I am excited. You know, Excited to see how my family not my family, my fantasy team does, who's basically my family because
Yeah,
they're
it's your
working
family
for.
for the next 3 months, 4 months.
Yeah, yeah. Um my family team. But yeah, so I'm excited. College is back, college football. I wasn't really, me, I wasn't really a big college football fan, but um hey, I was a big fan of last year, so I'm excited to watch some more and we'll see how it goes. But anyways, speaking of all that, we've been talking about this more and more, and it's a topic that is becoming more controversial each and every day, each and every year, right? It's NIL, right? We talked about this, name and likeness,
Yeah. Mhm.
um, just as a refresher for our listeners, in case you forgot what NIL is basically the idea or the business move that students it doesn't even have to be an athlete, I think, right? It's just any student. Typically it's more for athletes, because typically athletes cannot get paid. They're treated as amateurs when it comes to sports, even though they're literally making billions and billions of dollars, um, for schools across the country, because they play not like amateurs. They're not. They play just as good as professionals, without the title. But NIL allows student athletes specifically, to get paid, where it typically used to be illegal, right? Like, let's say you're a superstar athlete, aka Reggie Bush, you weren't even allowed to get free dinners from, I don't know, some sponsorship, right? You couldn't even do that. Nowadays, if you're not a big name, but you're kind of like a middle of the pack athlete, you can get sponsored by your local laundromat, your local plumbing company, right? It's like you can get sponsored in many different ways, which is legal now. And because of this change of the landscape, a lot of schools, um, some of the big schools are losing out on good players because other schools or other sponsors can pay an athlete to now come play for certain schools, right? No longer is, the big schools like football schools like Alabama, LSU are automatically getting high rated players. Now they're going where the money's at. And as of last year, schools are now participating where they have a budget that they can actually allocate to paying some students that they're scouting, right? It's not as much as sponsors, but schools can pay athletes now. For example, if um, UW wants to really get this one player and they have a budget of $1 million, maybe they could be like, you know what, let's give 500K to this one student athlete that we really want, right? So they can do that now. So, anyways, this article that I just read recently with all that background info, um, especially with that context that schools can now have a budget to pay students, right? Oklahoma State, the football team, I don't know if you knew about this, Tyler. They are the first of this kind to do this year. I'm sure they're not going to be the only school, but they are putting QR codes not only on TV but also on the helmets of all their players, that people from home
And
can
send them
freeze.
money.
Yep, scan
That's
the QR
wild.
code live and send the team money. Now, Oklahoma State specifically made it where you can't pay like, it's the article is hilarious, but you can't pay one specific player. Like, for example, you can't give all the money to the quarterback for helping you win a bet or something like that.
Yeah.
But so whoever you scan and pay to, it's pulled for the whole team. And then however they split that up, that's in private. But that's kind of cool, man. Like, let's say I don't know, can you imagine, like, during the playoffs, like, you're an underdog team that didn't expect to make this year's playoff rules, and you're like winning and you're like the Cinderella team. Like, people are like more likely to be like, you know what, I want to give them more money because I want to offer up my assistance in that way. But the article is funny because they also talked about how, like like in a way, this is like tipping culture continuing to go out of hand, where now you're tipping players that you're watching on TV.
Yeah, you make a
um
crazy ass play and then you're just like,
yeah,
oh shit, I gotta donate.
yeah, I gotta donate 20%.
It's crazy.
um yeah, minimum, you gotta minimum tip is 20% of a typical average ticket price.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about that? You think NIL's getting out of hand, or you think, like, this is kind of a good way to balance out the smaller schools that aren't going to get big sponsorships or big money allocations for NIL?
It's true. Um, that would be kind of cool though. I mean, if a lot of schools adopted it, because yeah, like to your point, I mean, there's gonna be some schools that aren't gonna get that recognition, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't know how that, yeah, I don't know.
Can you imagine if USC implemented this last year, but then you can also, like, send money to a specific player. They're in the bowl game and they're like, Caleb Williams, we will pull 10K to you right now. Please play in the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, like, it would give incentive to the players to, like, play. I don't know, man. That's kind of like, uh, I don't know if maybe it's a conspiracy, but you know how people say that Vegas betting kind of runs the sports world, right?
Yeah.
Whatever Vegas is betting kind of runs, because that's where people want to make their money. I mean, you already have that with college games, but can you imagine, like, it's even worse, right? When you kind of follow the money and, like, you know, a lot of people are pulling for, I don't know, some star player to I don't know, throw a game, right? I'm just throwing conspiracy
Yeah.
theories
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, imagine, like, let's say the Seahawks versus the Patriots was a college game.
Yeah.
Russ was given tons of NIL money live to hold the ball instead of handing it off to Marshawn Lynch. You know what I mean? Similar cases, right?
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
yeah, just talking shit, just conspiracy. Man, that still hurts, that play.
It's funny because like so many things have been talking about it, and it's
Yeah.
one of those things that it just keeps coming up. Because I just saw, what was it? Pete Carroll and Marshawn Lynch just got invited to talk on like, it was like a political podcast with like
Oh wow.
Gavin Newsom and like somebody else. Gavin Newsom, for
Yeah.
those who listening that aren't from California, is the governor of California.
Oh yeah. I don't
Um,
know.
is so it was like them talking to Pete Carroll and Marshawn Lynch, and they were talking about the play essentially. Um, I yeah, I don't know. It was randomly just popped up, and I was like, "What the heck? That's
Yeah, I
crazy."
I think I saw like a clip, not a clip, but just like a little anecdote pulled from it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it was something along the lines that now again, I don't know if it's fact checked. I didn't actually watch or listen to the interview, but the anecdote that they pulled from that was Marshawn Lynch saying something like it was a political move or something that went wrong. That's why they called the play differently than just handing him the ball.
No, I don't think that was the
Something
same
like
one.
that.
I think he
Okay, so
was.
there was nothing
It was
that.
no, 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 no. It was
Okay.
more just
Oh, okay.
like no. It was
Because
more
that
like
because
Pete
that
saying like,
anecdote made it sound negative. Like Marshawn Lynch is coming out with the truth about that Patriots
"Oh
game
yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah."
shit.
No,
Yeah.
no. It was kind of funny because like if you listen to it, it's kind of interesting that they obviously talk about it, and they were like, you never realize just how much one play is going to change like the course of
Oh,
history, essentially.
100%. Yeah.
Obviously, because it
I mean,
always
it
gets talked about.
literally.
You know what I
Can you
mean?
imagine if they won this, the Super Bowl
Oh, bro, they would have. I
against the
mean, they talked
Patriots?
about that. They would have had
They would
like,
have ran for a three-peat
yeah,
because everyone would have stuck together. That play alone not
destroyed
only
that team.
destroyed that team and destroyed the Seahawks dynasty. I think I think it affected Pete Carroll a lot more than he'll admit.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
he does talk about that too in that
Yeah.
episode. Like, it's an interesting listen if you want to listen to it.
Yeah.
I cannot remember what it's called. Here, let me for the listeners right now. Let me just pull it up for you so you can, even if you
Okay.
get to this far or this point in the podcast. I don't know how
Yeah.
much, people
That's
only
good.
listen to half
Yeah.
and
So
anyways.
that's good though. Marshawn and Pete Carroll had a good conversation. That's good.
Yeah, so it is let's see.
Because you can't take you can't read or pay attention to anecdotes these days. Everyone's having their own agenda.
Yeah. So this
Um,
podcast, if for those who are still listening and all that stuff, or if they, sorry, that sounded weird. If they want to listen to this, it's called Politickin,
hmm,
with Gavin Newsom, Marshawn Lynch, and Doug Hendrickson.
gotcha.
An unexpected collaboration. The California
Yeah.
governor, the Super Bowl champion, and their friend.
Yeah.
Um, friend and agent. Hmm.
Um,
Interesting. That is an interesting pairing of folks for sure. But they did
yeah.
have, they did have Pete Carroll on one of their episodes. I don't know how
Right.
many episodes they're in at the moment, but I think they recently just started. So
Yeah.
yeah, their first, yeah, there's 9 episodes. So
Yeah.
if you want to get in early and listen to it, by all means.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that
Yeah.
this is a new thing. Also, maybe Gavin Newsom is trying to be cool. I don't know, but
Maybe.
it's
I mean,
quite
you
interesting.
can't go wrong, man. If you have someone on as cool as Marshawn Lynch,
Yeah, I mean,
national treasure, man.
well, yeah, I mean, they hosted together, so it's kind of
Yeah.
kind of funny. Um,
Yeah.
but it's also funny because like, not to get off topic too much, but Marshawn, I feel like, is in his podcast era right now.
Yeah.
Because he's on all these different episodes, or he's on whatever. uh he just started a podcast literally like last week with
Yeah.
Michael Robinson.
Yep. Yep. I
And
heard
for
about
those
that.
who don't know, Michael Robinson was the fullback for the Seahawks when Marshawn was there. So if you want to listen to that, they also talk about that play in particular as well. But also like the Beast Quake and all of that stuff. But that one's called the Get Got Pod. So
Get got pod.
the Get Got Pod. Um, so yeah, so that's those
Hmm.
two just chatting and shooting the shit. Essentially, what we
Yeah.
do. Maybe we
Yeah.
should change our podcast name. If you see something different and it's not real talk with ZTS, you know why.
Yeah. It's
But who
called
knows?
shooting the shit.
Yeah, shooting the shit.
Shooting the shit. Dude, that'd be a funny ass name.
Maybe we'll change it. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
change it. Shooting the shit with ZTS, or just shooting the
Yeah.
shit. I'm sure there's plenty of shooting the shit
Yeah.
podcasts or
Yeah, I'm
podcasts
sure.
with that name, but you never know. It might be a time for us to rebrand. Anyways, real talk is just overused nowadays.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I've been hearing it too. We need something new.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Tell us in the comments. Reach out to us if you got a new
yeah.
name. Suggest it. We'll consider it. If it's shit, well, we're not going to use it.
Yeah.
But that's all part of
Unless it's shoot the shit.
unless it is shoot the shit.
Yeah.
Who,
All right.
who
Well,
knows?
man.
We'll see.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. Saw the time we got tonight. That was fun, short and sweet, right to the point. Um, any final thoughts before we wrap it up and call it good night?
Um, nah. I mean, it's now it's September.
Mhm.
So you're either gonna have one of two people right now in September. You're gonna have those that are still enjoying the last remnants of summer, or you're gonna have the ones that are already fully decked out in Halloween.
Right?
And then you're gonna have some people that are already decked out in Christmas. But
Yeah. Yeah.
Christmas showed up in Costco about mid-July. So
That's true.
it's one of those
Yeah.
things. But I'm sure.
Pumpkin spice latte from Starbucks showed up early too.
Yeah, yeah, August.
Yeah.
It's been out since mid-August.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready.
I
I
haven't had
did.
any
I
yet.
will say
Yeah.
I did have a pumpkin cold brew or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I can't say that I'm ready for that. I don't know. Just didn't hit the same way
Yeah.
as it normally does, right? Because I don't know if it's maybe because I'm in California now and it's 100
Yeah.
degrees and a
Yeah.
pumpkin spice anything doesn't necessarily hit in 100
Right.
degrees. I needed to come down about 30 to make sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know. For me, it doesn't feel like fall yet. But
Yeah.
then again,
Makes sense.
I've only been here a year, and the last fall did not feel like a fall. It was
Mhm.
like 70 degrees on Thanksgiving, so that's different.
Yeah. All right, man.
Anyways,
Well, thank you.
yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks everyone for another great episode. Thank you for listening again. As we're signing off, time to end it with our favorite saying: keep thinking together, keep talking with one another, keep growing together, keep loving one another, showing empathy, compassion, all that. And that's how we grow and learn and continue to love and support each other. So have a good night, and we'll continue it again next week. Have a good night.